Hello, everyone. It is Monday, October 6th, 2025, here on the Wolverine podcast, live on a Monday night. Anthony Broom here with Chris Ballas and Clayton Safey, as we are every week at 6 p.m. on a Monday. Fellas, good to be back. Good to see you. A lot to talk about today. Obviously, Michigan moves to 4-1 over the weekend with a 24-10 win over Wisconsin. They'll head to USC this weekend in what very well could be a maybe defining game is overstating it, but you win this one this weekend, and we might be talking about a college football playoff team. So we will discuss our early thoughts on that. Sherrone Moore spoke to the media on Monday. We will discuss his Monday press conference. And like we do at the end of every show here on a Monday night, we take your questions both in the chat and from our message board, which if you're not a part of already, use that promo code UM1 for 2 months of access to our site for a single dollar. It is what Clayton Safey over the years has affectionately termed as the best deal in America. So you're going to want to take advantage of that. That's going to get you well into December at this point. So if Michigan does make the college football playoff, going to have some intel on that. That'll take you close or right up to signing day. So excited for that. And that is everything you will get in that deal. So fellas, welcome back. It was ugly at times over the weekend, but shook the rust off. It was a game that never really was in jeopardy, and now you move on to USC.
Yeah, and it is a defining game, right? If you win, then you are in the conversation for the playoff and really have a great opportunity here going forward with the schedule the way it is lining up to make that Ohio State game a play-in game for the Big Ten title game. And even if you lose to Ohio State, if you beat USC, then I think there's still an outside chance, or a chance at least, that you are getting some playoff consideration. So we'll see how it goes. None of those games, there are three of them. You look at Washington at home, maybe a trap game after coming back from Southern Cal. Michigan State on the road, you better win, right? But stranger things have happened up there. That's not a good football team. Purdue and Northwestern are gimmies. And then at Maryland might be a little bit tricky. But a lot riding on this one. I think they know it. Guys, it is really, really hard to win out there. It just has been for Michigan, and we've said that so many times, and we've seen it for Big Ten teams going both ways. Washington had to overcome a 20-point deficit to win at Maryland. Penn State goes out to UCLA and gets beat. I'm sorry. I was laughing a little bit. I was actually walking back, guys, from the game, and I passed a tent where the Penn State game was on, and I think it was 26-7 or something like that, or 29-7. I was laughing, and the guy looked at me, and I realized he was a Penn State fan living in Ann Arbor. I felt bad. But regardless, guys, this is the one. And if you can go out there and win this game on the road, then you are in really, really good shape. And you can kind of change the narrative that, really change the narrative that they can't win on the road. But it's going to be a tough one, no question.
Yeah, it's a huge, huge week. And it's, I think the ESPN playoff predictor has Michigan with a 32% chance of making the college football playoff. Actually went down a couple percentage points based on some things that went around, have gone on around the country over the last couple weeks. But that is going to be really close to 50% probably if you beat USC. Teams are losing across the country, and this is a huge one because you have a really favorable schedule in the Big Ten. You take the Oklahoma game out of it, which is non-conference. I mean, it looks pretty fortunate based on the way teams are playing around the country. And that Washington game that you come back and play will be at 9 a.m. body clock time for the Huskies next weekend. So that plays into your favor as well. Noon game on Fox announced today. So you're in a really good spot if you're Michigan in terms of, controlling your own destiny, looking at the teams across from you and saying, did Wisconsin have the second best defense Michigan will play, starting last week until Ohio State? Potentially, I think that the Michigan offense can continue to grow with the opponents that they're playing. The defense is looking better and better by the week. So encouraged by that. But yeah, Chris, looking at the results out West over the years, was looking at that today. Washington last year, of course, the Utah game and Jim Harbaugh's first game in 2015, Oregon in 2003, Washington in 2001, UCLA in 2000. Those are the 5 in a row that Michigan has lost out there in the last win coming in 1989. We talk about it a lot because when you break down the schedule, that's a huge piece of going out West. But I know we'll talk about it a little bit later. Michigan adjusting the travel plan, getting out there Thursday, going to practice Friday at the Bolt, the home of the Los Angeles Chargers. So they're mixing things up based on how they did it a year ago. But yeah, just long-winded way of saying huge week for Michigan. All your possibilities. You open a lot of doors if you win this game on Saturday.
Let me put it in perspective here real quick before we move on, Anthony. I was in my second year at Michigan. I was living on the 17th floor of University Towers, and I set a VCR to tape the game as we were watching it.
A what?
I know, exactly.
Huh?
And instead of extended play, I set it on slow play, and the first half was so shitty that it ended because I didn't set it for extended play, and I ran out of tape, and it didn't matter, and I took it and I threw it out the window onto the hard surface, the concrete surface of the pool, because I was so pissed and I had a few beers in me. It sounds like me, doesn't it? But
How many beers?
Exactly. And then, so not only did I not get the comeback on my videotape, but regardless, it took a miracle to win that game, fellas. It was an onside kick late in that game. The late Veda Murray recovered it. J.D. Carlson kicked the field goal, and they win the game. And against, I think that UCLA team finished 3-7-1, so they weren't a good team either. So that just goes to show you how hard it is for even a good team, because that was a really good Michigan football team to win out there on the coast.
You didn't tape over someone's wedding or home movies or something, right?
Yeah, I would have, but no, I don't think so. I think it was just another crappy game. So regardless, I remember it like it was yesterday, fellas. Enjoy the moment, but we're going to go out there. We're going to have some fun. AB, we're going to miss you. Clay and I will be out there, but I can't wait to see it. And hopefully just play well, just go out there and play your best football game for once when you're on the coast, and let's see what happens.
We will get more into our early thoughts on this game and put a bow on last week's game here in a moment, but I want to shout out our friends over at Homefield Apparel, the sponsor of our Monday night show. Folks, I have good news. I looked at the weather report today. It is finally, mercifully, going to start feeling like fall in the state of Michigan this week. And Clayton, if you're not watching the video, is doing a thumbs down. He would prefer 80 degrees all year round. And
I know that, Anthony, I know the cold is coming. I don't need to rush it. I love this. Give me the heat.
Well, it's not just coming. By the time people hear this, it will probably be here already. So, Michigan announced their game next week against Washington. It's going to be a noon start, like we said. Probably going to be a little chilly. It's by the time that game comes, it's mid to late October. So you're going to want to go over to homefieldapparel.com. I'm looking at right now the Michigan Football 2023 National Champs Retro hoodie. A ton of other great hoodies there. Crew necks, long sleeve shirts. They've got it all. If you need a new hat, they've got some snapbacks in stock. They have a ton of schools on their roster now, and there's new schools being added all the time. There's new Michigan stuff being added all the time. Get in on the ground floor. Get some more of it if you don't have it already. Add some to your collection. Whatever it is, homefieldapparel.com has you covered. So head on over there, support a good people and a great company in Indianapolis, in the heart of Big Ten country. They're Indiana fans down there. They've got a huge game this weekend at Oregon. So maybe some of them are still trying to get out there too. So head on over to Homefield Apparel, pull out the credit card, buy some Michigan stuff, and send them out there because I know they'd appreciate it. So thanks to our friends at Homefield for continuing to sponsor our show. So we talked about how this USC game this week, and I will rewind here in a sec to the Wisconsin game. But when we zoom out a bit, this USC game is huge because you could have the bird in hand of, and if we can get the schedule up on the screen, that'd be great too for the folks watching at home. We've talked about this a million times at this point, but this if you find a way to win this game, Washington next week's a winnable game. Michigan State, I know it's a rivalry game. I know weird things have happened. That's a team you should beat and probably do so by a couple scores. Purdue is what they are. Northwestern is what they are. That's going to be a Michigan-friendly crowd at Wrigley Field. And Maryland could be a bit of a dogfight here just before the Ohio State game. But the runway that getting this USC win would mean for this program in terms of getting into the college football playoff in a year where, now Penn State is a 2-loss team. Texas is a 2-loss team. Those two teams could win or could lose more games. 10 wins, Notre Dame. 10 wins with this Michigan schedule, especially with one of those losses being to Oklahoma, is probably going to get you in. And if you win this game at USC, you have a chance to have more than 10 wins. A lot of work to still do, obviously, but let's just set the stage for this game this weekend and what it would mean to Michigan to go out there and find a way.
Yeah, it would mean a ton because this is, again, you got by Nebraska, right? If you were going to lose one of Nebraska and Oklahoma before the year, you would have picked Oklahoma because it's not a Big Ten game. So you get that out of the way. Now you win the one at Nebraska. They didn't look great. They looked solid at times. It was closer than it should have been. I still don't think Nebraska's very good. They play at Maryland. I think they're a 6.5 point favorite this week, if I'm not mistaken. So that's an interesting line to me. But this is the one, right, guys? And you've got to look at this and say, okay, there's a possibility that you're going to lose maybe at home to Washington. That's a tricky, good team, especially again coming back from the coast. Michigan State, they better not lose that game. Maryland that's not a game. I don't think they're going to lose that game, fellas. I just don't. Against a freshman quarterback, against that Michigan defense, I think it's going to be really tough for them. So this is it. It's this and it's Ohio State, and you look at these two and you say, okay, it's all right there. Ohio State to me looks more complete than they have in a while. And that's saying something because they were national champions last year, right, fellas? But they are playing great complementary football. We'll see what happens when they play better teams. I don't think Texas was the litmus test that everybody thought it would be. I really don't think that highly of Illinois either. So I think they're probably going to take care of business. But the way they are doing it, they kind of look like Michigan did from 2021 to 23. And I know that's blasphemy here, but the way they're playing good complementary football, they don't make mistakes when they go play action. They got some elite receivers. Maybe, we'll see what happens with Sayin when he gets against a better pass rush. But to me, like you said, Anthony, this is the one that's really going to tell us and could really get the fan base excited about what's going on here going forward because it's all there in front of them if they win it.
Yeah, Ohio State used to be built to win 50-20, and now they're built to win 24-6 like they did, in their last game. Were they off last weekend? I forget.
Mm-hmm. But Minnesota 42-3.
Or sorry, the Minnesota game that was a doozy. But their last kind of bigger game, they go out west to Washington and win that one that way, and you're kind of thinking that like, okay, this is a little bit of a different type of team that Ryan Day's morphed his program into, and I give him credit for it, to a certain extent. But that's going to be the challenge. But they have to come here. You beat them down there last year when you were zombie Michigan with no offense, so you certainly have a chance, no matter what happens here, to beat them. But you want to go into that game with one loss, is my point. And you look at the USC game, like Marlon Klein said today, as a playoff game. And really, the next 3 games are probably your 3 toughest before you play Ohio State. So it's kind of like a 3-game mini playoff that you got to sweep, or at least that's the goal. And I think you're better probably than all 3 teams. Vegas would say so over USC on a neutral field. They're going on the road and they're 2.5-point underdogs, but you're probably a better football team than them, or more complete at this point in the season. They've looked really good at times. They also struggled when they came to the Midwest and played against Illinois. And then Washington, is certainly beatable. Michigan State on the road, certainly beatable. So you win those 3, and I feel great about early and in mid-November before you play Ohio State. So it's just that important. As you said, Anthony, the bird in hand, like knowing that you have a buffer to work with as the season goes on, and knowing that you're not Notre Dame where you have your 2 losses in your first 2 games, and they have to run the table to even have a shot. So if Michigan could get that going, they're number 15 in the country. I know the rankings don't really matter, and the ones that matter aren't put out by the same people that have them out right now, the AP. But no one's really talking about Michigan. They're just kind of flying under the radar, playing their schedule. They had the bye last week. They had the Nebraska win. People aren't super impressed, but this team has a lot of room to grow. They can get better and better. I think we're waiting for that breakout game from the Michigan Wolverines, like in 2021, when they were just kind of what they were earlier in the season, in the Rutgers game, where they got like 1 first down in the second half at home, and then they go and dominate at Wisconsin, exercise some demons. They hadn't won there since 2001. They haven't won a game on the West Coast since 1989. Like this would be a hell of a flight home for them if they're able to pull this thing off. They're going to be talking about smashing narratives, breaking, bucking some trends in history and all these sorts of things, gaining a lot of confidence. That would be one confident Michigan football team on that, 4-hour flight home or whatever it is. They're going to be on a nice, charter plane. We'll be on the commercial flights, but they're going to be a confident bunch coming back to play Washington, and they can start to pick up some steam if they get a win this weekend, but it's not going to be easy.
They were 4-1 at this point last year, and this has been a talking point a lot over the last few weeks. 4-1 last year, and then things stagnate, and you ultimately struggle out to 5-5. Now, I don't think that's going to happen with this team, only because the schedule doesn't have the challenges on it that last year's did. But this is a game Saturday that is a coin flip game. If you don't bring it next weekend, Washington's a team that I think is capable of. I don't even think that's a trap game. I just think that's another tough game to play. Maybe not as tough as some of the ones they played last year. So the question I have is this, and I wrote, and this is kind of where we segue in maybe into final thoughts about the Wisconsin game. In Michigan's 2 Big Ten games so far, at Nebraska, against Wisconsin, the final score, it really is a couple plays away from being a much more lopsided effort. Certainly at Nebraska, and then this past weekend, you could probably look to 4 or 5, maybe even more than that, plays against Wisconsin, where really outside of that opening drive, it was dominant, but self-inflicted wounds kept it a little closer than it needed to be. And I guess my biggest question about this team, and maybe one that they will answer on Saturday against USC, or they can take steps to answering, is that in every position group, and in a couple of these games recently, there are these individual moments of really good stuff. I'll even say greatness in some areas, but it hasn't all come together in sync yet. And my question to you guys would be, in the here and now, do we think that is simply who they are because of what how the program is run, how they're coached? Maybe, these certainly aren't the clinical Jim Harbaugh Wolverines that they were a couple of years ago, or specifically on offense, is this just a young group that is still figuring out what they have? And really, I think when you rewatch Saturday's game, despite a few drops, despite a few issues in short yardage situations, I think you come out of that game with a few more things to hang your hat on the offensive side of the ball when it comes to Donovan McCauley and Andrew Marsh. So I think this team will be defined by if all of those things can come together in sync, because at times all of the questions have been answered this year, but very rarely has it happened in unison.
Yeah, and what I wrote yesterday about the receiving corps, it's not that they put up good yardage against a bad secondary. You would have been disappointed if they hadn't put up the yardage. It was the contested catches that McCauley and Marsh were making, the back shoulder Marsh catch, the sideline catch by McCauley, the yards after catch by McCauley on the slant for a touchdown, things like that are really exciting. And then when you get Hogan Hansen back too, guys, I think people are sleeping on the fact that Michigan's got a really good third option, receiving option, and a tight end that just hasn't played a whole lot. We saw glimpses of it last year. We saw the sideline catch where he high pointed it against Central Michigan. And this guy can really add to the room. I asked Sherrone Moore, I think last week, or I think it was actually Steve Casula. I said, what can you do with 2 tight ends out there like Marlon Klein and Hogan Hansen that you can't do when there's just one? And he said it opens up a world of possibilities, especially if you've got 2 receiving options now like McCauley and Marsh. And I think Marsh will continue to get better. So Samaj Morgan is what he is, right? He's going to be that screen guy. So, and that, and he has that role. He plays it well. If he's got to catch more passes, obviously, but that is his role, and they have gained a lot of yardage on it. People complain about that, right? They'll flare the sideline passes, and they've been picking up, I think, 8 yards a carry, I think, on average. So no complaints here. But as far as the other stuff, the concern I have is the tackles. And I watched them, and I watched Andrew Sprague, and I was really disappointed by the step backward he took. Now, he's a young guy, too, playing in his, 5th start or 6th start or something like that. So maybe he's still learning, but there were things at this point in your career that you shouldn't be doing on a football field, whether it's false steps or getting out over your skis or in pass protection or whatever, that needs to be a little bit better. Maybe it was just a bad game for him and he was off. Evan Link has not graded out well at left tackle. I think, 50-something, Clay? Didn't we put up a post on that today? For the season, I think he's in the 50s, which is below average. So something like that. So it's got to be better. And I think we're going to see against a defense that's not great. This USC defense got shredded by Illinois. Granted, it was a road game, but there's some speed on that side of the ball too. This is going to be the game that really tells us, I think, and can tell us, okay, can Michigan be that complete team here? Can they be a team that can sneak into that top two or bust up the Ohio State duo at the top of the Big Ten, and they can do it by playing a complete game. And I really think that's the only way that they can win this game. It's not going to be a Nebraska type game. If they play like they did at Nebraska and they give away some opportunities and make some of the mistakes they did there, then I think they're going to lose.
Yeah, Evan Link, just looking it up right now as you were talking, 59.2 on the season overall. Tackles with not a very good game against Wisconsin. I thought, Bryce Underwood, I think, was only pressured on 18% of his dropbacks, but it felt like every single pressure was in a big moment, right? 2nd and 5 on the plus side of the field. And then, it's a big loss. And I think there was a 3rd down in there. And the drops came at rough moments as well, right before half when you're trying to get things going. I mean, I think there were 34 seconds or whatever it was, but you had a big gain there on a run pass option that Bryce Underwood made a great read on, finds this guy, perfectly places the ball. Kendrick Bells was at a key moment as well. Max Bredesen's the most key at being a 3rd down, so that killed a drive. So kind of that clunkiness of, the misassignment here, or just an absolute whiff a couple times by Andrew Sprague at the right tackle spot as well. Blown up in the line of scrimmage. Justice Haynes, I think, loss of 6 or 7 yards or whatever. It's like just stuff that really shouldn't happen. I know you have to give Wisconsin some credit for it. But I do think the offense continues to take a step forward. And Anthony, what you mentioned with some things to hang your hat on that this offense has a year ago, and really comparing to last year, that's no standard or bar that you're looking to be anywhere near. But they had nothing that really worked. Like, what would you do? You were in those Sunday or Monday meetings in your Kurt Campbell and Sherrone Moore and that offensive staff. What are you saying? Like, okay, let's run a little bit more of this and that. They're just searching for stuff. Like this year, you're seeing more playmakers emerge. You're seeing a pretty talented group on offense overall. When coming into the year, you kind of looked at it and said, all right, you have some good running backs. You have a freshman quarterback who's really talented. Who are the other, difference maker type guys on offense? You're starting to see that there's some possibilities there at wide receiver, tight end, when you get healthier at tight end as well. And then you have the defense that you do. So it's growing. It's coming along a little bit. I will say, Nebraska and Wisconsin have like opposite defenses. I thought Nebraska's secondary was really good, but the defensive line was not good. I thought Wisconsin's defensive front was pretty good. Michigan still rushed for 175 there. And I thought the secondary was really bad. But like you said, they still made a lot of plays down the field, plays with the ball in their hands as well. We saw Marsh get after it after the catch. We saw Donovan McCulley get some yardage after the catch, even Samaj Morgan. The Marlon Klein had Zach Marshall had one, and then Marlon Klein had the screen where he hurdles the guy. Guys are making some plays. So I like the direction they're headed overall, but the short yardage concerned me. I think you went, by my count, it was 3 of 6 in short yardage, and 2 of the successes were at the goal line where you have 3 or 4 shots at it. When, in the middle of the field, you don't necessarily. The one where it's 3rd and 2, they throw and then they go for it on 4th. When if you're going to go for it, I would just run twice.
Great.
So still some things that are a little clunky in there. It's funny, like in 2023, Michigan in short yardage, they go 6 for 6. Now, a good team, a Michigan standard team, probably 5 for 6 I'm fine with. I mean, no one's going to be as good as that team was with Blake Corum in 22, same thing. And really 21 with Haskins as well. So, but 3 of 6, a lot of meat on the bone there, a lot of meat on the bone in a lot of areas. But I do like the direction they're heading. I feel like Chip Lindsey is starting to figure out more and more what this team can run, what they like. And I thought with Sherrone Moore back, Chip Lindsey proved that they're going to still stay pretty open offensively there. So I thought that, was an encouraging sign at the very least.
I have a couple super chats here. One from Felix Carry On for $9.99. Thank you, Felix. He says, huge fan of the pod and getting insights from Mr. Skeen. Yes, Ballas and Skeen on the YouTube channel and in your podcast feeds. Watch and listen to us first, but then go back and listen to them if you haven't already. He said, I reside in San Diego and will be at the game on Saturday. Can we please get more Heisman love for Justice Haynes? Go Blue from SoCal. Thank you, Felix. Yeah, Sherrone Moore talked about that today. He thinks he is a guy that should get some of that consideration. Now, I checked earlier. because I wrote the story that's on our site about Sherrone Moore saying this. BetMGM still has him at plus 5,000. He's tied with Bryce Underwood. Now you keep having, he goes out and has a game like that, like he has on Saturday at USC, certainly against the Ohio State Buckeyes. Maybe he's there in New York. I think he's on the right track. So 5 games in, 6 weeks into a season, I think Heisman hype for anyone is probably a little overblown, but a lot of games still be played. But if he plays the way he has, we'll see what happens. And then our buddy Shane Johnson for $4.99, he says, CB, my friend, you are covering Michigan forever. How are the wide receivers so undeveloped? 2 years removed from a natty without a coaching change, not a serious playoff team without USC victory.
Yeah, the disappointing part, and part of it, right, is when Jim Harbaugh was here, they were running the ball so much that if you're a wide receiver, you look at Nico Collins, and we've said this so many times, criminally underused here. And that was, 17, 18, whatever, and 19. So if you're a wide receiver in that offense, are you really going to want to come here and block? And I remember asking Roman Wilson in 2022, I think it was, knowing that now what you knew that, or then what you know now, would you still come to Michigan? And first he talked about NIL, which has improved dramatically. And then he said, it's just part of the deal here. We know we're going to get our opportunities, but we have to block. And if we want to be good team players, that's what we have to do. But now with Bryce Underwood here, it should be much easier, right, to get some of these guys. Donovan McCulley and really Andrew Marsh. I think Andrew Marsh would be the number 4 guy on a really good Michigan receiving core. I think Donovan McCulley is a 2 or a 3 if you go back in Michigan history and look at the best receiving cores, for example. And that's the way it should be at Michigan. You should have great receivers, NFL receivers every year, at least a couple, in my opinion. So underdeveloped, I don't know. We'll see. I think they're off to a better start this year. I'm excited about Marsh. Goodwin with the drops was disappointing. Samaj Morgan kind of is who he is. But to me, they need the talent upgrade in that room, Shane. And I think you're going to see it coming. I think there's no question about it. And got some young guys coming in as well next year. So I think that thing's only going to improve, and they're going to make it a priority, more importantly, having Bryce Underwood back there. And
going back real quick to Felix's super chat, San Diego, it's going to be awesome. I think it'll be a lot of Michigan fans out there in Los Angeles, and some of them coming from, all over California, the West Coast or wherever. And Sherrone Moore said that today. He said it's sold out, but it's sold out because Michigan's coming. And I have a feeling USC fans will probably get a hold of that. But also, Felix, hope you're a Chargers fan as well. Bolt up. And to Shane's point, and Chris, what you were just talking about, our friend Isaiah Hole of Wolverines Wire texted me today to point this out, that Donovan McCulley with 309 receiving yards already has more than the leading Michigan wide receiver last year. And that's through only 5 games. I think he has it cleared by a decent margin. Tyler Morris had 200 something. So it's just crazy. Like they have upgraded there. They've upgraded at quarterback. And that's why, Anthony, to go back to what you were talking about earlier with, October, Michigan didn't fare well in October last year. Well, and I know he got asked that today. Sherrone did. He said different team, different mindset, different quarterback, different receivers, different everything. Like I would add on to that, all those things. And the other thing is, if you're going to do the same as you did in a certain month the year before, then Michigan last year would have ran the table in October, but they didn't. So you can't compare it at all. I think this team's in a totally different place, and I feel good about it. Partially because of the wide receivers stepping up and having some playmakers like Marsh and McCulley. That was big going into this game, at the very least, to get the chemistry going, the cohesiveness. Because if you think back to early in the year, all the miscommunications and different things that went wrong, you're seeing more plays being made and less things where a play happens and everyone's kind of looking at each other like, what the hell just happened? Was that supposed to be a run? Was it supposed to be a pass? Am I blocking? Whatever. So they're coming along. And yeah, I think the talent is going to be on the way in the future years at that position.
Yeah, I want to make clear too. Like I'm not comparing this season to last. This is also, that was Sherrone Moore's first October as a head coach. I don't know how this second October is going to look yet.
No, I know you weren't either. I was talking more about the question he got asked today. And
right. Yeah. And I think it's a fair question. Something that last year they showed is that they didn't win as many winnable games or games that they straight up should have won as they needed to. And I know October is lighter than last year. I know November is extremely light this year until the last one, but we'll see that will all be written on the field, and obviously a huge opportunity this weekend at USC. I want to hit a couple bullet points from Sherrone Moore's press conference today, and of course, classic me, I closed out of the tab where Clayton had wrote the quick hitters. Injury updates. Left guard Giovanni El-Hadi and sophomore tight end Hogan Hansen are guys that Sherrone called probable for this weekend's game. That's a huge development there. Junior right guard Brady Norton could also return, but he's gonna have to compete for his job. Whereas Gio El-Hadi is going to be the starting left guard when he returns. So, quick thoughts on the injury updates.
I think Jake Guarnera has solidified himself as the right guard, and he better stay there. I'm sure that maybe Norton will get in there occasionally, but I think Guarnera has played well enough there to earn that job the way that apparently Gio has, because Sherrone Moore told us last week, yes, he's earned that spot, the right to come to get his job back when he's there. He's not going to get Wally pipped. So I want Gio to play like Gio can, like we saw him play a few years ago, and with an angry, mean streak, and to be that guy that is really an all Big Ten guy in there. He's now in his 5th year. He should be out there dominating at this point and has not. In fact, there have been too many times where he's kind of looked, even at times, like a weak link, and that should never happen. So hopefully he comes back and he's really got that fire in his belly to be really, really good. So I think it's going to be important because, again, these tackles, that interior of the line, which in my opinion was one of the weak links against Oklahoma, has been actually playing pretty well since then. So Nathan Afobe's had his ups and downs. So getting Gio back there and playing at a high level with Guarnera, who I think is going to continue to ascend, and I think Greg Crippen's playing some of his best ball too, would really, really bode well going forward.
I agree. I think Guarnera's got to stay in there. And you think back to even some of the bigger plays against Wisconsin, the first long run by Justice Haynes, Guarnera right on his block, and then Max Bredesen comes in and makes the key block. The block at the goal line, Guarnera was, partially the reason why Haynes could bounce it outside and score. And that's just one game. I mean, the last few, he's been an integral part there. So we'll see, what Brady Norton's role is. It'd be nice to have a healthy Brady Norton to, somebody that has some experience, be able to come in and add some depth. But El-Hadi coming back should be a plus. Hogan Hansen in the passing game could be a plus as well. And it is kind of amazing too. And it's a credit to the tight ends in the health of the wide receiver, it's a credit to the wide receivers and the health of the tight ends has played into this. But just, I think I broke it down last week in an article, but it's like 24% of targets are to tight ends this year. Last year, it was like, it might've been over 50% or really close to 50. But I also think that there's a happy medium there, and getting Marlon Klein more involved, getting Hogan Hansen more involved, maybe big going forward. That may be part of that next level of this offense, that in some of the strides that they can take going forward to kind of hit that next gear.
Maybe not next gear, but in the current iteration of the offense, Sherrone Moore also said 100%. That's his quote, that freshman wide receiver Andrew Marsh has done enough to earn the opportunity to play more and keep starting. He also says freshman wide receiver Jamar Browder is going to be in the mix a little bit more moving forward. Another kind of lengthier guy, sort of like Donovan McCulley, though a bit more of a project as a true freshman. It seems like, any movement that there's been on the depth chart, it seems like those freshmen are going to get the chance to play here moving forward.
Yep. And I love Hansen in there. I think I've said that, giving them another option. So that's critical. Having those guys that can actually catch the ball. What would his numbers have been this year? Bryce Underwood's had there not been so many drop passes. And I think part of it, again, he's got to take a little bit of zip off the ball at times. There was a little out to Donovan McCulley where it was a great catch, a little bit high. And he made a great catch on the sideline for, I think, a 5-yard gain and a first down, where you're like, all right, just take a little zip off it there. But at the same time, the ball hits you in the hands, catch it. So I think Bryce Underwood's numbers, he would have been well over 300. And I think Sherrone Moore said that slant to Samaj Morgan, you break a tackle there and you're still running just before the half. So lots of guys, lots of balls and opportunities missed. But I think if you get those 3 or 4 guys that you can really count on and then you still have Morgan for the screens and stuff like that, then I think that's going to bode well for the offense. So I like the direction it's headed. I love having Justice Haynes in there. He's a difference maker. Who knew? I didn't know he was going to be that good. In fact, I predicted Jordan Marshall would be the bell cow in this offense, and in fact, it's been just the opposite. And I don't think the running game would be anywhere near what it is without Haynes. And I wrote this yesterday too, that a running back truly can make an offensive line look better than they are when you've got that kind of vision, speed, and ability that he does. His big run, he waited for those blocks to develop, guys. If you go back and watch it, he's patient. Whereas, remember Donovan Edwards running up the back of a lineman, not being patient enough for something to open up. That is something that Justice Haynes does extremely well. So he really makes those guys better.
One of the things he does the best is the bouncing it out when it's there, cutting it back when it's there. And he talks a lot about running to green grass. His vision is great because he sees the green grass and he can kind of just figure out a way to get himself over there. I thought he ran through contact a little bit better in this game than he had. That was kind of the one thing maybe that he didn't do as well early on in the season, pushing the pile and things like that, but it was better against Wisconsin. So he's even picking up a little bit of steam here. But going back to the wide receivers, I'll believe it when I see it with Jamar Browder getting more time, because I think they've kind of found their trio at this point with Andrew Marsh, who was really impressive. Like the first game against New Mexico, he didn't look back at the ball. He had the fumble on the kick return. And I'm kind of thinking, all right, are they just trying to speak this into existence with, oh yeah, we got this freshman. I always talk about it too in the offseason. Freshman receivers get more hype than anybody because there's a lot of routes on air. There's some one-on-ones. There's opportunities for guys to make plays in practice. But how good are you at reading coverages and all these different things that go into it when it's actually 11 on 11 and the lights are on? And that's a different story. They don't usually get as much run. It's usually the sophomore year that's the breakout. But Marsh looks pretty legit. It was a bad Wisconsin secondary, but I like the way he moves out there. I like the way he high points the football. I like the way he's not the fastest guy in the world, but the way he runs after the catch. By the way, got the first down on that 9-yard gain that they called, and then Michigan's drive ends. That was killer. A terrible spot. I think he got it by at least half a yard, maybe a full yard.
Yeah, where's the coaches there? Come on, guys.
I know. You got to challenge
happen. Get somebody up there that's watching the plays, and if it needs to be reviewed, have it reviewed. They wasted a possession on that one. Continue, Clay. I'm sorry.
For sure.
Yep.
No, I totally agree. We were saying it too up in the box at the same time. It's like you got to challenge that. Now you're going to review, and they call back the Justice Haynes first down run that wasn't a first down. I think they made the correct call on that one, but they didn't before, and it cost you a drive. And in a bigger game, that could cost you points. But I don't know. I like the chemistry between Bryce Underwood and Andrew Marsh. I like the chemistry a lot between Bryce Underwood and Donovan McCulley. I thought Bryce played outstanding against Wisconsin. I thought he threw well on the move. I thought he had to throw on the move a little more than I would have liked him to. But he was accurate on the move. And I was looking this up earlier, courtesy of Sports Info Solutions. But 61 of his 130 passes this year have been on the move. That's top 10 in the country. And he's gained 399 of his yards while he's moving or shuffling, as they define it. So, and I think he's gotten more accurate on those as the year has gone on, and the receivers have become more reliable. So, yeah, I like Marsh there, and I think McCulley, you got to feed him more because he comes up with the jump balls, and we even saw it against Oklahoma where they go to him a few times, and he made some plays. So I think continue to open it up and feed the guys that are catching the football.
I think that speaks, AB, too, to Chip Lindsey moving him around, understanding that he's got a line that, if you dropped back, say they had an Elvis Gerback back there, guys, or John Navarre, they'd be screwed.
100%.
Or any of the guys they had last year.
Exactly. Or any of the guys they had last year. Those guys would be, you said 18%, I think, of a pressure rate, Clay. I think it'd be a lot more than that if you didn't have a guy that was designed to move a little bit more and a guy who could move a little bit more. And so Bryce Underwood is really the perfect quarterback for this offense right now, better than I ever expected him to be as a true freshman, really a unicorn. And I think Pro Football Focus rated him in the 50s. And I'm like, what the hell were they watching? This kid really managed the game extremely well. And the thing that he's doing best, other than putting the ball on the carpet twice, is protecting it, not throwing the interceptions. How many times do you see even the best true freshman quarterbacks throwing lots of picks? He does not throw it into danger. And there was a play, and I'm going to write this for tomorrow's column, early in the game where they were sitting on a route. Wisconsin was that Michigan likes to run. And if he throws it out and isn't, and he just isn't thinking or looking, that's going to be a pick in Michigan territory. Instead, he tucks it, runs. This guy, he's got everything you're looking for already. I can't wait to see what he is in 2 years.
Yeah, I think what's impressive, and I want to bring up the super chat from GoBlue982 for $5. He says, I'm late to the party today. Sorry if it was asked already. Does it seem like our tight ends are underused? It seems like we've had more tight end plays in the past. We did sort of just talk about that a couple minutes ago with the tight end usage. I think what the consensus kind of was, last year was super high. This year, it's probably a little bit lower than you'd like it to be. Certainly would like to see those guys used more when both Marlon Klein and Hogan Hansen are healthy on the field together. So want to make sure that Go Blue for the $5. You get your comment up here and get a little bit of shine on that. But we did discuss that a little bit here earlier. Last point on the wideouts before we get into questions. Where I was impressed with McCauley and Marsh on Saturday is that, when you play a bad secondary, it's one thing if there's a busted coverage or a guy falls down and you get a 30-yard gain. I think it's the skill set and, like you guys said, making plays in the football, high pointing the football, running good routes, the sideline awareness. That's stuff that, that applies to any opponent. And certainly a couple of those, Bryce Underwood's putting the ball exactly where it needs to be. So impressed by that. I talked earlier about things you can hang your hat on moving forward. I feel like that's something finally like a tangible top 2 wide receivers that aren't going to drop the football, or at least haven't dropped the football yet, to get some more run. We will move into questions now.
Can I give a quick stat real quick? I meant to mention this earlier. Underwood has had 15.4% of his passes dropped. That's the highest rate among Power 4 quarterbacks in the country, with over 100 in dropbacks. And his completion percentage, his adjusted completion percentage, so what his completion percentage would be, is 73.4%. And it was pretty high. What did he complete? 68?
Yeah.
Yes, it was. Against Wisconsin, it would have been even higher. It's like
82, I think, when I counted the drops, it would have been 82%.
So, I mean, that's crazy. And I know it's a poor secondary, but he made plays. He was really accurate. To your point, Chris, too, one of the things that has impressed me the most is when they go play action and he's got to get a quick fake handoff off, and then he kind of pulls up and he's able to throw a perfectly accurate ball kind of wherever his feet are, however it is, whatever arm angle he's got to use to get it, between defenders and whatever throwing lane he has. I mean, this is special stuff that we're seeing. And a lot of it is just the simple stuff. In the ball security, his misses are outside. They're not where the defender is. And, the one gripe you could have is when he's scrambling and he's kind of going down, maybe he lets go of the ball, but his knee was down against Wisconsin on the one he had the fumble against Nebraska. That's stuff we've seen veterans have issues with in the past, and he'll certainly get stuff like that cleaned up as well going forward. So, man, there is just a lot to like with this kid. And the fact that he wasn't even a big talking point coming out of this game despite throwing for 270 shows you how routine a lot of that looked, and he's 18 years old.
Yeah, it's fun.
He's making the simple stuff look impressive.
Right.
Or he's doing impressive things that look simple because he's so good at it already, which is a complete juxtaposition from last year where they couldn't even get a first down. They couldn't even throw past the sticks. It was remarkable in hindsight. Let's move over to questions now. We'll start in the chat this week with you folks that are kind enough to watch live. We will take this one from Ryland31, who says, where do you think this team is on a scale of 1 to 10? For example, last year's team, I would have been about a 6.75, and 2021 about an 8.5. This team, I'm about a 7 or 7.5.
It depends on what you're trying to measure in terms of reaching their potential. Is it in terms of, making a playoff? In terms of reaching their potential, I think 7 to 7.5% is right. I think there's room for improvement in some areas. I think the defense is playing pretty well and is going to even get better with Rod Moore back there. I was going to throw this out there, guys. My question was, this is 5 games now that Michigan hasn't drawn a holding call, correct? For the defense. So, and I think I was watching the TV broadcast, and they said Michigan is one of the defenses that has gotten the most pressure on quarterbacks this year. I don't know if there's a stat out there on one of these advanced stats, Clay, that you can look up, but to me, that's weird. It really is. It doesn't make any sense. And so hopefully they get a better whistle here going forward as well, because we've seen so many times that, and Sherrone Moore talked about it, our guys are getting tackled out there. That is an equalizer in games like we're going to see in the next 3-4 against overmatched opponents, against anybody. It can be the difference in a game. So, but I think they're at 7 or 7.5. I didn't mean to stray off a topic there, but I do think there's room for improvement on the offensive line. I think a little bit more room for improvement in the synergy in the secondary, and I think Rod Moore will help that with the pass defense. So, and then somebody over here mentioned first drives of games too defensively, and I think that's something that needs to be tightened up. But it's scripted plays, you make adjustments. I don't think there's anybody really better than Wink Martindale, and he's kind of proven that in the last couple of years.
Yeah, and 3 out of 5 I think have scored touchdowns on Michigan the opening drive. They got to figure that out. Wisconsin had 2 weeks to script their drive. They actually had some success running the ball, and then some really simple dink and dunk passes. Michigan was bringing the blitz constantly. Really did all afternoon. I think when Wink sees a quarterback, like when he smells blood, he's just going to send guys, and he likes to get in their face, maybe just kind of rattle them and kill their will, especially when they're at home. I don't expect that game plan or really some of the issues other than a few missed tackles. 3 I counted on that opening drive. One by Jaden Mangum, one by Zeke Berry, and then Ernest Hausman. Just a poor effort, I thought, at the goal line. So the tackles you got to clean up, and that was the adjustment that Sherrone Moore pointed to after that first drive. But as I continue to ramble, Michigan second in the Power 4 with 45% pressure rate, Chris, and 0 holding calls. It's ridiculous. And the fact they called the holding on Max Bredesen, which I didn't think was a very good call. Yeah. So they're calling it. They've proven that they're calling it at times. I don't know what scale exactly we're going on here with the 1 to 10 as I move on to the next rambling thoughts. But I guess I'll take it this way. I think this team is playing at like 6.5 of what I think they can be. And that means by the end of the year, like some of it's just going to be natural growth where you can't play at that level right now. And a lot of teams don't ever reach 10 of what their potential is, but there just feels like there's like that meat on the bone in a lot of areas that if it comes together, they win at USC, 42-17. I don't know that they're going to do that, but I think it's something that's possible that this team can do. But they've just got to be a little bit more, doing a lot of
detail, Clay. Attention to detail, I think, is one.
Attention to detail, like the flashes you were talking about, Anthony, earlier, which I totally agree with. Those need to be a little bit more consistent. Now, it's easy to say that, but negate some of the mistakes and errors, and just do a little bit more of what you're doing well consistently. I know that's pretty vague, but I think that this team has shown they can be good in a lot of areas. They just haven't done it all the time yet. So yeah, I think there's an upside here with this team.
I would agree with that. And part of it too is specifically on offense. Like they are still extremely young. It's a new system. You're still trying to figure out what you have, but the standard here, which you don't have to go that far to look, and Sherrone Moore coordinated offenses that did this and was part of a coaching staff that when they got up on you, they buried your ass. Like there was no, okay, it's 24-7 and this other team's going to go on a 7-minute drive and close out the game. No, that's a game that they're probably winning 34-7 or 41-7, whatever it is. Like the go for the jugular thing is not quite there yet. And it takes time. Certainly the Nebraska game was much more lopsided than the score would indicate. But when you make those mistakes, when you take your foot off the gas a little bit, it lends itself to teams hanging around. And that, so, to answer again, now I'm rambling, the scale to 1 to 10, I think I'm with you. It's probably about, I'll just round up and say it's about a 7. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much higher the potential for this year's team is. Maybe that killer instinct isn't there until they play a couple of doormat teams here in the last month or so of the season. But there is so much there still. And that's where it's 2 Big Ten games in a row now where you're like, all right, like you had a chance to put this team away. And yeah, the foot comes off the gas a little bit. I'm not crazy about kind of subbing 2s in and out in a 2-score game in the fourth quarter. Luke Fickell wasn't trying to win the game anyway, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, that killer instinct is still, I think, where, being developed. And I do think this team's ceiling is probably that of the 2021 team. So I think that's a good comp. I really do. Let's take one from the message board. We will go to Blue ×2. He says, what is Michigan's best matchup advantage against USC, and what is its biggest disadvantage?
That's it. I haven't looked that deeply at it. It's Monday, but watching USC against Illinois, for example, there was somebody on the message board, I forget who it was, that said, "Oh, but USC is a top 25 rush team in the country when they're playing a bunch of doormats," and then Illinois kind of exposed them. I think Michigan can run the ball on these guys. I really do, and I feel good about that. What you don't want to do is fool yourself into, like they did with Oklahoma, that we really have to control the clock here and we have to grind this out because they've got a playmaking offense and they've got great receivers and a great passing game. Play your game. Let Chip Lindsey do what he does, right? And you're going to score enough points to win this football game if you play pretty well defensively, which I think they can. So again, it's tough to win out there. The venue and everything else, concentration, all that will come into play. But I really like that for Michigan. Illinois, what they put up 502 yards on these guys, I think it was. So there are going to be a lot of plays to be made out there. So, and I think Bryce Underwood is going to have a chance to have a big day against them. I worry a little bit about the USC receivers. I think they're going to take some deep shots, guys. On this Michigan secondary. That's why I hope that Rodmore plays a ton. If he's capable of playing 18 to 21 plays like he has the last 2 weeks, I think maybe they've been kind of easing him back into it. He's healthy now. He looked faster, legit. Sherrone Moore said the same thing. He looked faster than he did before the injury. So I want to see him out there. I want to see him playing a lot because I think he could be a difference maker in this game. But you can't allow the big plays over your head, guys. And they've got a lot of team speed. Going to have to tackle well, but don't let those receivers beat you.
Yeah, Rod could be a huge factor in this game. You think back to last year's game, they don't beat USC without the pick six from Will Johnson, just a special player making a special play in a game where that really aided the offense quite a bit because it was 7 points on the board. Or did they miss the extra point or whatever after that? Maybe, but you need a guy like Rod Moore out there, and I think that his play on the pick was incredible, but his two other plays that he made, the pass breakup and the tackle, were also just as good. I think that your biggest advantage is the rushing offense. Like you said, Illinois went 35 for 171, 4.9 average. Even Georgia Southern had 4.3 on them to the tune of 142 total rushing yards. So opportunities are there. They haven't played other good rushing teams. Purdue, Michigan State don't run the ball effectively. So I think Michigan will have an advantage there. I like their defensive coordinator, so maybe he'll mix some things up and try to confuse Bryce Underwood a little bit. But I think that they can have success certainly on this secondary as well. And then, like you said, it's the receivers, it's the one-on-one matchups, it's, tackling in the open field on some of the shorter routes against these athletes. And then also not sitting on those routes too much, knowing that they're probably going to double move you like Wisconsin did on Zeke Berry on Saturday after Michigan just kept seeing them go short. Like they're going to try to test your eye discipline. So I'd say that's the thing I'm worried most about is if they can get some big plays through the air, which really teams haven't done a lot on Michigan this year other than Mateer when he scrambled out. Then you could be in for, more of a track meet type of game. And you don't want to make, USC probably wants that, but Michigan does not want that.
I think positives, just to keep it short, I think if you protect, you could get almost anything you want offensively, as long as you protect. The flip side of that is that I think their edge rushers are very good.
That's what worries
me. And the explosiveness in the passing game is something that Michigan has not seen yet. They have not seen a Mekhi Lemon. They have, we'll see if Jacoby Lane is able to make a big impact, but they've got as much juice at wide receiver as any team that they'll see this year, except for Ohio State. So those would be the areas for me that I'd be looking at here. We have time for
the Michigan tackles, buddy. They got to have better games.
Yeah, that might be the position group of the game, honestly. Yeah. Super chat here from GoBlue 982. We have time for a couple more quick ones, so I'm going to go rapid fire here. GoBlue 982 for $5 says, in 2026, will we see James Franklin in the big house after he Franklined that game away in disastrous fashion at UCLA?
Oh, frames. somebody over here said it's only a matter of time before he wins. It says it doesn't deserve to be fired. It's not like Penn State's a perennial national title winner. He has them winning at a high clip. They will eventually win big games. When is that going to happen? It ain't happening this year. And they aren't going to win at Ohio State. So, yes, you will see him back because I think his buyout is like $500 billion or something like that. His agent should be commended for getting that.
Jimmy
Joker,
Sexton.
That Joker. Yeah, that fraud, a huge contract like that. So we'll welcome him back for another beating at the Big House.
Really quickly, get ready to speak ReliaQuest Bowl, buddy.
Yeah, it's beautiful down there.
I love it
when it rains, but the rain helped.
Fantastic.
Oh man, I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment, so I guess I'll say he'll continue to be there. But this feels like it's trending more than it ever did. Like you'd always get to fire Franklin after those big losses, but they were still good. Won 10, 11 games. Now you're probably only going to win 9. The UCLA loss, Oregon essentially beat you twice. Man, it feels like it's closer than it's ever been. So I'll say that he's here, but also Florida Wolf on the message board asked who goes first, Franklin or Smith. Fickle's in his own category.
I think Smith is looking at the UCLA job. Is that what we're hearing? I don't know. Is that what your moles are telling you, Clay?
I have no moles, but that would be hilarious.
John Smith.
They have Michigan State has a new athletic director, and I'll just say it now: if they don't beat Michigan, they will have a new head coach next year. I have no
2 years. Boy, that'd be tough. I don't know. They got to improve.
Yeah, but, look at not everyone's Kurt Signetti murdering teams year one, but we see how quick it is to flip these rosters now. Like there are no 5-6 year rebuilds anymore.
No, somebody over there says PSU should hire Signetti. If Signetti, I don't know what his buyout is. I know he's got a long contract now at Indiana. If he weren't somewhere like that, he would be unbelievable. Guy's a great football coach. I give him credit.
With the NIL, because PSU has increased their NIL lately, and they're doing well on that front. Yeah, it looks like his buyout, a quick Google search according to AI, $13 million if he leaves before the end of this season, decreases annually. But Penn State, they'd be desperate enough maybe to pay it. So
yep.
Yeah, if you're going to pay the $60 million it takes to get rid of James Franklin, what's another 13 more? God,
exactly.
What a stupid amount of money is in this sport now. Let's take 2 more real quick. This is from QED, who shout out to Chris from Germany, said in our post-game show Saturday. It was incredible. Chris, thank you so much for stopping by. I'm happy you got to make that trip. He wants to know, it's a road game on Saturday, but are we expecting more USC or U of M supporters in the crowd? What is your guess?
Michigan will be 50. It'll be 50-50. Those fans travel. When I was out there, guys, at the Staples Center for Michigan basketball, they took over that arena. It was like a home game. It was better than a home game. Every time we go out there are a ton of Michigan fans in California that show up. Maybe not quite 50%, but it'll be damn close. Michigan fans have been waiting for that out there.
I'm going to go 60-40. I was at the 2 games out at Staples Center too in 2018, and an event staff member told us that LA Kings fans are the most raucous there, but Michigan had even the Lakers and Clippers fans beat in terms of how energetic and the energy that they brought to the stadium was. That was incredible, and there are going to be a ton. I'm going to go closer to 55-60 just because I feel like people overestimate these, but it's going to be a lot. And as Sherrone Moore said, there's a reason why it was sold out. It's because Michigan's coming.
Yeah, hopefully none of our people bought the seats next to the press box where you literally can't see 90 yards of the field. So hopefully you didn't get snowed into that. Last one from Richard also Brooks. He says, hey guys, who's going to watch the Tigers beat the Mariners in Detroit? I gave it my best effort last night. Going to need your best efforts this week. Hey, you know what?
Need it.
1-1. You lost the Scooble start, but you got one on Saturday. Now you got 2 at home, and you got the best pitcher in the world going in Game 5. Feeling good. I will be there tomorrow night. I will try to take the baton from you, Richard, and see what I can't make happen for our Motor City Kitties. But
I was in
exciting
Cleveland
times.
I was in Cleveland last week with my boy for one of the games, and the one they won, and got a lot of F Detroits. So the first one that they won, and so Cleveland fans, thanks for coming out, and boy, what a nice season you had there, as Clay would say.
Yeah, solid season.
It was really cute. Yep.
All right, well, I think that's going to do it for tonight. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Over 50% of you that watch these are not subscribed. So hit that button right now. Click on the little bell. It's going to notify you every time we go live, every time there's a new video posted. So take some time to do that. It helps us get in your feeds. It helps you to get more of us, which depending on how you feel. That's either better or worse for your mental health. But also get on the site. Promo code UM1 for 2 months of access for $1. That's going to get you behind the paywall. It's going to get you on the message board where you can get in on some of these questions as well, and all kinds of fun happening behind the paywall there. So for Chris Ballas, Clayton Safey, our producer Megan behind the scenes, I'm Anthony Broom. Guys, thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you later this week.